Today, as you can see, our examples will be going over multiplying sort of situations where we have like either multiplying or dividing. So this is an example where we have an inequality that's solved very similar to an equation. If we're going to use an equal sign right here, like that's sort of the same idea, is that we're going to undo stuff, work in the inverse direction, work in the opposite direction. And so the only weird thing is that part of our notes in this particular topic is that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, then the inequality will actually take and flip around the other way. It will actually reverse. All right. So let's start out by solving this. It says solve this and graph it. Okay. So this particular one right here, what you will do is multiply by 4 right there, and whatever I do to one side I must do to the other side, so I multiply by 4 on both sides right there. These will cross out, and I drop down my inequality. So I sort of like to put still that line straight down to kind of keep them straight and organized and in a line, and then I rewrite this. I'm going to rewrite it as x on this side, because if you multiply by 4 and divide by 4, it's like it didn't happen. Those are opposite operations. They work against each other, and actually it will turn into 1. And so we have x left over on this side. And I did not multiply by a negative number, so my inequality stays facing the same way. And it'll be a negative 4 times 4. That will turn into negative 16. That's my final answer right there. And I read it like this: x is less than negative 16. If you would like to write it this way instead, you can write it that way, but the orientation of it has to stay the same, and you have to flip this around. So if you flip the location of the x, then you have to still say that it's less than. The pointy part still needs to point towards the x to say it's less than. All right. If I was to graph it, it would look just like this. I would have a negative 16. You don't have to put on all your numbers. You could say there's a negative 17 here and a negative 15 over here. And I will have an open circle because it's not equal to. So it will be open, and it says x is less than. Or right here, x is less than. So I will be shading this way. Okay, check out this next one. This example, very similar to solving equations. All right, I'm going to put a line down on top of my inequality. That's exactly where my equal sign would be if it was an equation, but it's not. We're solving it almost the exact same way. So right here, I'm going to divide by 2 because I see there's multiplication in there. The opposite of multiplying would be to divide, and I'm going to divide by 2 and divide by 2. I'm going to cross these ones out because they will cancel. And what do I have left over? I have n is greater than or equal to, and right here, what do I get out of that? Negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. That's my final answer. Not too bad on that one, right? It says graph the solution. So if I was to, sketch the graph out right like this, it would be negative 7 here, and there would be like a negative 8 over here. Remember, it goes more negative that way. If it's more negative, then it's actually going to be less in this direction. So I want it to be greater than. So if I want it to be greater than, it'll be going towards the positive numbers, towards the 0. 0's over here somewhere. All right, and so I'm going to graph it on there with a filled in solid circle, solid dot on top of it to say that yes, it could be equal to that, and I'm going to shade it greater than, right like this. All right, try to do a neat job, but sounds good. All right, go ahead and advance to our next video. They do get tougher.